If you or your student has been making vocabulary flashcards for the SAT, I want to tell you something important before you make one more. The SAT fundamentally changed its vocabulary approach years ago. Most prep materials and most tutors have not caught up. The old SAT tested obscure definitions, words you would never encounter outside a literature classroom. The current SAT tests something completely different. And if you're still studying word lists, you're preparing for a test that no longer exists. We hear this constantly from students. I studied 400 vocabulary words and none of them showed up. Of course they didn't, because the current SAT does not ask you to define words in isolation. It gives you a word used in a specific context and asks what that word means in that context, not in general, not in a dictionary. In this sentence, for this author's purpose, one of our students memorized the word sycophant across 4 different prep books. It has never appeared on the SAT. The word, although, has appeared 23 times across practice tests, although was in none of her prep books. The most important vocabulary in the current SAT is the vocabulary of argument structure, not word definitions. We analyzed hundreds of actual SAT and ACT reading passages to identify the vocabulary patterns that recur the most consistently. And what we found surprised even us. The high-frequency vocabulary on the current SAT falls into 3 functional categories, not topic categories. These are words that signal structure of an argument. And once students learn to recognize them, they unlock the reading section in a way no word list ever could. Category 1, contrast and concession words. These are words that signal the author is about to pivot, qualify, or contradict a previous point. Words like although, however, nevertheless, despite, while, yet, even though, in contrast, on the other hand. Why they matter? SAT questions about the author's main argument or central claim almost always find their answer after a contrast word, not before it. If you can identify where the author pivots into a contrast, you can locate the main argument in seconds rather than rereading the whole passage. Category 2, tone and stance indicators. These words reveal the author's emotional or intellectual attitude toward their subject. Words like paradoxically, remarkably, ironically, unfortunately, predictably, curiously, alarmingly, tellingly. SAT questions about tone or purpose or the author's perspective are among the most commonly missed, and these signal words are almost always the answer key that students scroll right past. Category 3, evidence and claim strength words. These words signal how strong or certain a claim is being made. Words like suggests, implies, demonstrates, argues, contends, acknowledges, disputes, challenges, confirms, contradicts. The difference between suggests and proves is enormous in the context of a reading question. Students who miss this distinction consistently choose answer choices that are too strong, too weak for what the passage actually supports. On the SAT, the author suggests and the author proves are not interchangeable. Treating them as such costs real points. Here's the practical shift. Instead of studying a word list, spend 20 minutes a day reading the kinds of passages that appear on the SAT, academic articles, science, journalism, historical essays, with active attention to contrast words, tone words, and evidence qualifiers. Highlight them, note them, ask yourself, what is the author doing with this word? In 2 or 3 weeks, you'll begin to see these signals automatically. And when you see them, you'll know exactly where the answer to the next question is hiding. Well, this is admittedly harder to put on a flashcard. but it is significantly easier to use on an actual test. Trade-off accepted. Next week, we're going to go into one skill that affects every single section of the entire test, timing. And we're going to train it the way athletes train, not the way students hope. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to know exactly which vocabulary patterns your student is currently missing, click the link below. See you in the next one.